Well, now let's bring in Moloko Moloto, Aviwe Mtila and Pulele Chwiti Jones. They, of course, are tracking this massive story from a number of different angles. Joining me this evening, thanks once more. Pule, I understand that you have Floyd Brink, the city manager, with you this evening.
Definitely. Very good evening, Sally. I'm joined by the city manager, Floyd Brink, right now, just to give us more detail around what's the way forward and what the city is working on currently. Floyd, thank you very much for chatting to me this evening. Now, let's start off first with what I've witnessed, right? I've spoken to some of those who are residing in this building here who are saying they will not be moved. In fact, they want to go back in. As the city, how are you dealing with those who don't want to move?
Look, at this point, we've got our JMPD and SAPs here as well. We need to ensure that we've documented almost 80–90% of the people that are residing in this building. But we do have a level of resistance. But we've indicated to our team in JMPD to work with our social development team in order for us to register those people. Moving and not moving is not an option. We definitely need to ensure that the site is safe here, because we will not allow anyone back into the building up until we double check to seal the building and also to check the structural integrity of the building.
Okay. And then just also in terms of some of the buildings which have been hijacked, how many have you identified across the city? Because even throughout driving to this particular scene, you can spot numerous buildings which are decayed, dilapidated and derelict as well. How many buildings have you identified as a city?
We had a briefing this afternoon, and the number that we managed to get, privately owned as well as city-owned, in total is slightly more than 100. I think when you listen to the President, it's quite clear that it's an IGR-related issue. It links to specific laws and regulations within the country. And I mean, he is clear that at the Parliament level, it's also something that they would have to really look at and assist us as the cities as well, because it's all about enforcement. And this is usually where we say, as a city, we plead that with our judicial system also to assist us, because there are times when we would do specific raids, we would come into these areas and try to take over the area. But at that point, you would then also hand over back to SAPs. And that is usually where it is the intergovernmental relations processes. And I think those are some of the notes that we now need to try as well.
All right, Mr. Brink, just again, when did the firefighters arrive here on the scene?
So, as we've indicated initially, the call came through about 19 minutes past 1. Our first responder was here around 29 minutes past 1, and there was already a team here. So, the response time, according to our team, is quite well, and it's within standard.
And residents here say it was an hour.
Definitely not an hour, and we can prove that as well. Definitely not an hour.
Okay. And then also, when you speak about, how council, the Metro Council is being accused of arrogance. They say you don't listen to NGOs and the property managers. What's your reaction on that?
It's quite sad to hear those particular statements coming out, specifically from NGOs. What we are very clear about in the city, we are not going to be bullied by certain NGOs that have got certain ulterior motives that they would want to achieve. That we're not going to allow. But in terms of property owners, I mean, look at the Breer Street incident. I guess you're going to get something completely different than what you just indicated now. There we are working quite clearly and closely with the property owners to help us to redesign that area. And I mean, there you can talk to the people from the Chamber of Commerce and so on. So we are working quite closely with them.
How many buildings were engulfed to flames in the last period, last year, in this year alone?
I mean, those are some of the numbers that I should get for you from EMS. I don't have it here with me at this point, and I wouldn't want to mislead you or misdirect you at any point.
Just last before you go, the last time, of course, there was an agreement here with this building, with the lease agreement. We're told it's around 2013, 2014. What went wrong? Why did you not come and check after this building was allegedly hijacked by someone who was then arrested in 2019 again?
Yeah, look at some of the processes within the city of Johannesburg. So through our group forensic investigation services, we had a specific raid that we conducted at that point. But in terms of the lease agreements, those are some of the information that we will have to look at it step by step in terms of sequence, what exactly happened here. So we are also on a fact-finding mission as well.
So you do admit some of these processes are flawed?
We wouldn't want to admit to anything in terms of flawed processes, because at this point, up until we are sure about the fact-finding and the sequence of events, then only we will respond to you. Up until that time, we will not.
Mr. Brink, thank you very much for joining me. The City Manager of Johannesburg there, Floyd Brink, speaking to us this evening, Sally.
Thank you so much, Pole. Let's bring in Aviwe Mthethwa now. Aviwe, if you can hear me, let's bring you in, because I understand that you have got some survivors. You've spoken to survivors, and I think there are so many politicians who've had so much to say throughout today. But I want to hear more about what the survivors are saying, because the conditions in that building and the fact that that building was not properly looked after is what led to the loss of life. So tell me what you've heard today.
Sally, it was a nightmare for the people that were inside there. I mean, there are still even traces of just the horrendous situation that they went through. My colleague Noko Molaji is showing you some of the blankets that they used just to get away from the fire, as of course in the early hours after 1 o'clock is when this building was engulfed by the fire. We hear some of them tried to jump from the 4th floor as those doors leading out of the corridors were actually locked inside, Sally. They didn't know what was happening. They just saw this blaze, and all they did was scramble to get outside. Just on the cars that you see and the flashlights from the security cars that you see there is where in the early hours of the morning that dozens of dead bodies, Sally, were laying. In fact, I've been speaking to different associations. We know the official number is 74 people that lost their lives. And not only a number, Sally, these are people, of course, coming from different families. Some of them supported those families. We know at least a dozen children are part of those 74 that lost their lives here, Sally. We know 24 females, 40 males, and at least 10 people that were burnt beyond recognition, of course, is what the official number that we were told. From Malawi, we do understand about 20 people lost their lives as they're still searching for 5 more, and we do know 5 being hospitalized, I beg your pardon, but they're trying just to get their lives back together, Sally, now, as we do know government has provided at least 3 shelters for them to be housed, but some of them not even wanting to go, Sally, wanting whatever is left inside here, as of course they say that they've had the most horrific experience in their lives yet.
And in a way, Aviwe, if that's all you've got left, and it's there right in that building, absolutely tragic. Malusi Mthethwa, let's bring you in. We've heard from a lot of politicians today. There's been a lot of blaming, but it was interesting what the president said. We are all to blame. Tell us what you've got from your side.
Oh, yes. Since this tragedy happened this morning, there has been a flurry of politicians who came here pointing the finger of blame at one another, blaming those who are in government, at the local government, and those at the provincial, and even the national government was not spared either. And importantly, I mean, one of the statement issued by Rise Mzansi as a new political party that is not represented anywhere yet, but it's going to be contesting the elections, we understand. Songezo Zibi there is the leader of that party. He issued a very, very detailed statement, scathing, essentially saying that these people just didn't die. They were killed by a system that he says is out there prioritizing money, profit, and saying that the people of South Africa and Johannesburg should also not accept messages of condolences from people who are part of what he calls a misrule. Joining me now is Colleen Makubele. She is part of the people who are governing in Johannesburg, and I would really like her to respond to that. Madam Speaker, thank you so much for your time. Songezo Zibi says you, the people who are running the system, essentially killed people here.
Good evening to you and the viewers at home. I think you know, when misplaced politicians try to politic on things that are really tragic, and it's not his place to really apportion that blame and that kind of a statement, it's disturbing. You know, I know it's a new party trying to find its footing, try to find a voice, but they must do it differently and in a decent manner. You do not use the tragedy of 74 people that died here to come and utter those kind of statements. I think it's very disturbing, it's very divisive and very ingenious on his part. I don't think it's wisdom at all. But what I would like to say is that as a city, we accept our responsibility in this. It's a shared blame that we take our part in it. This is a city's building. It was not compliant, it was hijacked, and we did not act on it. And as part of our role now is to then look at how do we bring accountability to the table. Number two, the building that was burnt today, it was not the first time the hijacking incident was addressed. And the justice system failed us. You identify the people, the JMPT, arrest them, but in between bringing evidence to the court and when the city hands over to different arms of government, there is no prosecution. And the people come back and they continue with what they need to do. There is also Home Affairs. There were a lot of foreigners that were here, some of them undocumented. And those are the things that we need to look at as well. And of course, there are citizens that do not understand their role and the discipline and the bylaws that we're trying to enforce in the city, that were in this building, occupying it as well illegally, paying some of these owners that are illegal foreigners here. So it is a shared blame across all of us, including NGOs. We will not stand here and really point a finger at one specific person. We all take joint accountability, and in our own way, all of us are going to go back and look into this thing and how we then prevent it from happening again, how we take accountability, whose head must roll, who pays for what, etc.
I hear you say it's a shared blame, mentioning the criminal justice system, the NGOs, the Home Affairs, even citizens. But ultimately, you are in government, you're governing here in Johannesburg. Where did you fail as the city of Johannesburg? And what blame specifically are you taking as city of Joburg?
This building was hijacked in 2013, as we understand the reports. 2016 new governments came in, 2021 new governments came in, nothing happened. We take the responsibility because all those governments that have been in place, from ANC to DA to the multi-party to now the government of local unity, all of us, we agree that we didn't do enough as councillors of the city and also as the mayors that have been since 2013 to ensure that things like this don't happen. You know, even Mashaba tried to address it, he could not. Kenny Kunene came under the mayor commanded to address it, he could not because people ran to the courts and they bound our hands. But when I talk about citizens, it's very important that you understand it in a broader context. This is a similar situation where year in, year out, in the informal settlements that mushroom by the flood lines, etc., rainy seasons are coming. We're going to be dealing with also cases of deceased and all of that. People are being flooded out of their homes because we keep preaching the same message to the citizens, do not do this. But because they have found a loophole in law in our constitution that says if they come and occupy like this illegally, when you evict them, you must find them an alternative accommodation. So the city must now spend money that they don't have. We must reprioritize everything to...
Yes, but you must be alert and remove them immediately when they settle and don't wait for longer. But unfortunately, we don't have much time left, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time. Colleen Makhubele is the Speaker of the City of Johannesburg. And of course, you heard there, Sally, she doesn't take kindly to the criticism there by Rise Mzansi, the new party that has joined the political landscape. Interestingly, earlier in the day when we spoke to Dalton Adams, who is the leader of the ACDP in Gauteng and member of the provincial legislature, he said that the problem is that you have such a huge turnover of government and executive mayors in Johannesburg to a point that you have no idea what is happening. Whoever is coming, they have to start afresh and they forget even important things. So he's blaming that political instability at the top, and it is the politicians, the councillors who are in that council who surely are to blame, because it is not the residents of Johannesburg who vote and remove the mayor. It is them as councillors who do that. I can't even remember how many mayors we have had here in Johannesburg since the 2021 local government elections.
Yeah, it's a fair point that is being made there, and thank you so much, Maloko Moloto. also to our colleagues at the site of this deadly fire, Aviwe Mthethwa and Jones.